Welcome back, everybody. Jesse here for 3Prong Gaming, and in the last episode we began the process of our intelligent construction process. Intelligent construction being in parentheses. It's just making things a little more complicated, I suppose. No, it's making it a little bit more, smart. Yeah. So let's continue in this one. We're going to set it up to where the construction office now will go ahead and look for a job on its own if it doesn't already have one. So let's get this thing started. Alright, like I mentioned, in the last episode we began the process of our intelligent construction, and where we set the construction manager to begin delegating jobs to available construction offices in the world based off of several conditions, whether A, they have employees, B, if they're currently busy, and if both those conditions are met properly, then it will check to see which one is closest and assign the closest construction office to the construction proxy. So yeah, we're just kind of reversing that a little bit here for the construction office. So first and foremost, let me go ahead and say Happy Thanksgiving to my American viewers. Thanksgiving's only a couple days away, so yeah, gobble gobble. And I do plan with that. I am on vacation this week, but my kids also start vacation in a couple days. So like I said, I like to record these videos when my kids are at school. So yeah, it will make it a little bit tough for me to get another episode out this week, but I do anticipate having one for you guys Friday. And then plus I've got all the family stuff to do too, but I am going to try to punch that out and make sure I've got one for you Friday. Yeah, so let's go ahead and get this started. You can see up here at the top of the screen the two blueprints that we're going to need for this. That's all we're going to need are the construction office BP and the construction manager. Let me start off though. In the last episode, you saw that I made a mistake, and it's in the initial contractor search. I did a screen overlay with some text telling you I messed up, so hopefully you fixed it before this, but just in case you didn't, I'm going to fix this now. Right here in the loop, or after the loop in the completed, off the true branch, I put it right here to where we are getting the array of the min float here from all construction offices. That's not what we want. We want from the available construction offices. Let's get it. It was supposed to plug right in, but yeah, so go ahead and plug that in there. Got that set. Available construction offices. Perfect. Okay, let's don't look at that. This is I just recorded this episode, but had lost all my audio yet again. I don't know. Apparently my microphone was muted, but I didn't see the light flashing at me that it was muted. So cross your fingers that everything goes as planned for this. So let's jump into the construction office BP right now. All right. And what we need to do, let's go ahead and right click and do a begin play. Okay. First thing we need to do off of this, right click on the begin play and do an add call to parent. We got to set this one up first because there's things in the parent that we need initialized first. Most notably our variable for the controller reference. Yeah, if we don't run this first, then we won't have access to that variable. It'll come back as an access none. So set that up. Like I said, right click begin play, select add call to parent blueprint. And there you go. So we can't see all the variables that are exposed there, but in order to see those, you click the eyeball up here, show inherit variables, and you can see right up here into references, we got the controller reference. You could just do that, drag and drop it and put it in here, or you can just right click in the graph and do controller ref, and you can pull it up this way as well. All right, I'm going to close this eyeball back out because I don't want to see all that in there. Okay, so from this controller reference, let's go ahead and drag off of this one and do construction manager reference. Now we could probably go back into the building master and we could set this construction manager reference to a variable inside of there. But really, construction office, I think, is the only one that's going to need access to the construction manager. So we'll just leave it like that. Okay, so let's go ahead and right click construction manager and promote that to a variable. We'll call this one construction manager ref, hit enter. Set its category to references. Plug this right on in there. So there, now we got access to the construction manager anywhere else we need it. All right. So one thing we need to do is we need a way to know that the construction is finished, right? Because if you remember in the construction manager, we've got this variable here, current job site. And this variable is actually important to the construction process because we check it to make sure that we're not currently busy. Get job status right here. We grab that variable, current job site. We check to see if it's valid. In other words, we have something stored in that variable. And if we do, then we don't perform a job. So this is an important variable here. But we got to be able to have a way to clear this variable out. All right, so the best way to do this is when construction is completed, we send a message to the construction office and let it know that it's been completed. So how do we do that? Well, there's a couple ways you could do it. You could run an interface call and do it that way. Or what we're going to end up doing here is we're going to run an event dispatcher. Okay, click the finish construction. We're going to run an event dispatcher. You could do an interface, and that would probably be just fine. It's a little cheaper to run an interface and an event dispatcher processing wise. But yeah, we'll go ahead and run an event dispatcher anyways. Like I said, if you get to a point to where you're starting to optimize your game fully and you're checking its processes and seeing how long each process takes, and you need to save a millisecond, then change this to an interface, and you'll probably save that 1 millisecond. All right, but let's go ahead and I'm going to call this one finished construction. Right now, a little confusing. Like I've mentioned before, probably need a little bit better name spacing because we've got right here this function that we're in is called finish construction, but I'm calling this finished as in it's past tense, whereas in finish, it's finishing up everything it needs. It's going to be the last thing we call. Okay, so with the finished construction selected, we need to add a new input, and let's just go ahead and call this one job site. Okay, we need to make it of type construction proxy BP. Okay, perfect. Go ahead and compile that. And then just grab your finished construction, drop it in here, and add a call to it. Okay, now, like I said, we're in the finished construction right here. Okay, so go ahead and drop this in right before the destroyed actor. All right, because otherwise, if we call it after the destroyed actor, well, it'll be destroyed. We will no longer have access to it. So just grab this. This line right here is the proxy that is being passed through, which is the job site that we need. So just go ahead and drag off of the reroute node here, hook that up to the job site, and there we go. That's perfect. That's all we need for the finished construction. Sorry about my neighbor's dog barking. So in the construction office BP now, what we need to do is we need to add the bind event to that. So pull off of your set right here and do bind. We need to come down here to the default bind event to finished construction. All right, hook that up. Let's go ahead and we need an event to be able to hook up to that. We can do a function if we want. I'm just going to do an event. Let's call this one finished. Add custom event right there. Now we'll call this one finished construction. Okay, we need an input of this called, we can name it whatever we want. I'm just going to be consistent and call it job site, and we need to make it of type construction proxy BP reference. All right, so now if we drag off the event right here, we could just take this event and just plug it in like so if you really want, but like what we do with most everything else, just to keep things nice and clean, go to the event dispatcher, create event, select function. We're going to do finished construction job site. All right, there we go. Now we compile it and save it. So now when this begin play happens from the construction office, it will bind this event. So whenever that call is made, it'll call this finished construction right here. So what do we need to do with the construction? Well, since we're going to most likely have multiple construction offices in the world, that's why we're passing the job site through. We need to take this job site, equal. We need to make sure that it is equal to our current job site right here, right? This is kind of like what we do with our HUD. When we send out the event call to our HUD, everybody that has a HUD receives the execution, the event call, but only if it matches up will it do anything. So if the job site being passed through is the one that this particular office has, then we need to do something with it. If not, then we'll just ignore it. Okay, so go ahead and plug in a branch here, hook up the condition. Okay, so like I said, false, we're not going to do anything. True, what we need to do is take our current job site now, drop it in here, and we'll just set this, and that's it. Just leave that blank and empty right there, and that's all we need to do for now. There's something else we got to add at the end, but I will show that in just a little bit. All right, so now that will clear out and make this variable null. Cool, so let's go ahead now and work on letting the construction office find a job, right? So what we need to do now is we need a function for that. So let's go ahead and create a new function here. Let's call this one bid for job. All right, we don't need any inputs coming off of it. Let's go ahead and right click in here. Actually, we don't even need to do that. Let's just go ahead and grab your get job status, drop that in here. Now remember that all this is doing is checking to see if this variable current job site is null or not. All right, so drop in a branch and then plug in the condition right here. Now we only want to bid for a job if we're currently not working on a job. So we're going to run everything off of the false right here. So let's go ahead and add confused me right there. I see an output there and I'm like, what? It's because I had this one selected. Select your bid for a job. On the output, what we need to do is we need to create a new output. We'll call this one bid successful. Hit enter. Let's make this of type Boolean. Drop that in here. And if we do have a job, we want this to return false. Your bid was not successful. Okay, we'll use this variable on the output later when we plug it in. All right, so now if we do not have a job, if we currently are not busy, we need to run another function, right? So like I said, it's best to we can put all this functionality here in the construction office, but it's always best to try to keep things where they belong. So what we need to do is we need to go into the construction manager now, right? And create a new function. And let's just call this function bid. Hold on a second here. Delete that. Like I said, this isn't the first time I recorded this. We'll call this one bid manager. Hit enter. Okay. So now the bid manager, what we need to do is this is going to look similar to like what we did for the initial job search for the construction manager in the last episode. So what we need to do here is we need an input. We'll call this one contractor. We'll pass through, what we'll need to pass through on this is the construction office that is making a call to this function. We'll pass that through. Okay. So what we need to do here is we need to pull off this, type actually we don't need to do that. Sorry, I didn't fix that on my other one yet. What we need to do is we need to create a new local variable and call this one contractor underscore local. Make it of type office, construction office BP. Go ahead and set that just like so. All right. So now what we need to do is we need to get our construction bid, get it. We need to know length. And because we need to make sure before we do anything that we even have any construction bids. All right, so go ahead and pull off of the length, do a greater than 0. All right, so if the length of our construction bids is greater than 0, then we do have an office or a building that needs to be constructed. All right, so just hook in the condition right there. Do it like so. All right, so if we don't have an available office, let's go ahead and just do this one. Let's add a return node, and we're going to need a couple outputs on this. So just go ahead and select this twice. The first one, we'll call this one job site. We need to make it of type proxy, construction proxy BP reference. The next one we need to do is one bid. Enter, make that of type Boolean. All right, and then plug that into the false. So now what this is doing is if we don't have any construction bids, then we return this. We don't return anything through the job site, so that way it'll come out null. And one bid, false. We did not win the bid because there is no bid to win. All right, so now if we do have a construction bid in here, we need to grab our construction bids, get it, pull off of that, and type loop. We need the for each loop. Okay, hook in the execution to the true. All right, so now with this, what we need to do is we need to grab our contractor local, get it, and just like what we did in the last one, we need to pull off of this one and do get distance to. All right, and what we need to get the distance to is the proxy that's being passed through in each iteration. All right, so now that we got the distance, we need a way to be able to store this, because if we got a bunch of construction bids, we're going to have a bunch of distances. So we need to be able to store that just like we did with the last one. Local variable. Let's go ahead and call this one distance to sites underscore local. Make it of type float. Go ahead and make it an array. And then pull this in. We need to get it. And then we need to add. Do a regular add. We don't want to add unique. Plug that in and then hook up the execution. And perfect. That's all we need for this one. Right? Unlike the last one where we had a whole bunch of stuff going on, all we need to do is store the variable, because these will all be valid objects, right? So now by doing it like this, by going through each index one at a time, this will be index 0. Adding this for the first time would be index 0, index 1, index 1. So this index will match the index of these proxies coming through. Okay, so now off the completed, we need to grab our distance to sites. We need to get it. All right, now we need to grab this and do min of float array, just like we did in the last episode. All right, grab our construction bids, drop that in here and get it. So now we need to get from there the index of our minimum float. Like I said, these indexes match up. So wherever this minimum one is, the index of the minimum value here is going to match the index value of the bids. So that's what we want for that one. So go ahead and create another local variable. We'll call this one job site underscore local. Make it of type proxy, construction proxy BP, and not an array. We only want a regular variable. Okay. Go ahead and pull that and drop that into here so it'll set it. Hook up the completed to the set. All right. And then from this, now what we need to do, the reason why we set it to the variable here is because now we need to remove it. So go ahead and grab your construction bids again. Get it. Pull off and do remove. Now there's a couple choices here. We got remove index and remove item. What we need to do is we need to remove the item. Because if we remove the index, let's just type this in, I'll show you what it looks like here. If we just remove the index, you'll notice the difference right here. And the difference is the big one right here, is the Boolean that passes out. We could just do the index and plug the index into this one. But the problem with that is another construction office that is applying for construction bid could be milliseconds ahead of another one. And if that's the case, we'll remove an index from something that doesn't exist. So nothing will match up properly. So by doing this, by setting up this remove like this, and what we need to remove is the job site local right here, is if we're successful in removing this instance. We're checking the instance. So it's a very specific. There's only one instance of this proxy in this array. So if we're successful in removing it, then we know for sure we won the bid and can execute that way. But if you run it off the index, trust me, I ran into problems with it. We will have issues. So drop in a branch. Oops, drop in the branch. Plug that in, hook up the condition there off the remove, and then perfect. So if we didn't remove it, let's just go ahead and come back out here. Grab the return node. We're going to need this a couple times, so just Control W, Control W. So if we didn't remove it, just like we did off the false of the other one, we don't want to return anything off the job site, and we want to leave one bid as false. Right? So now if we did successfully remove it, then that's perfect. Then that means we get the job. So go ahead and drag your contractor local in here. Okay, get it. And then we're going to need the job site local. Drag it in here and get it. So off the job site local, remember in the last episode, we set up a variable called contractor. We need to set the contractor. So that way we can come back later and grab this variable if we really need it. Plug in your contractor local into the contractor. So now the proxy knows or has a reference to the construction office that is currently working on it. Okay. And then just go ahead and plug in to the return node. And then what we need to do here is just take the job site local that we plugged in and plug it into the return node. And then we need to make one bid as true. Then that's it. That's all we got to do for this one. All right. So compile and save that. Again, just real quick to highlight through, we come in, we make sure that we have a construction bid that is available. If we don't, we return false and nothing in the job site. If we do, we grab our construction bid array, we loop through it, we check the distance between the construction office, which is the contractor, and the construction proxy, which is from the construction bids, get the distance of it, set it to an array. The index of this distance will match the index of the array that is being passed, or the object being passed through. Okay, so then we come down here, we grab the minimum float array, and then we pull the index of that out of the construction bids, set that to a local variable. Then we remove this using the Boolean, right? The remove item, not the remove index. We check it. If we did successfully remove it, that means we won the bid. We send that bid through the local construction site through here and one bid. All right. Hopefully that doesn't confuse you there. Go ahead and jump back into the construction office. All right. Now in the construction office, what we need to do is go ahead and grab our construction manager reference right here. Let's get it. Now we need to call that function bid manager. Plug that in there. Notice I did not make bid manager a pure function. We don't want to make that a pure function. And the contractor that is applying for the bid is self. Get a reference to self. Okay. Plug that in there like so. Perfect. All right. So now what we need to do is we need a local variable here. Let's call this one job site underscore local. Okay. Make it of type proxy reference, and then let's just drag and drop it right there. It'll set it for us. Okay, so that way, even if that's why we set those ones null, so even if this comes back with nothing plugged into it, it'll keep this variable null as well, which will be apparent why we do that in just a little bit. So let's run a branch right here, grab your one bid on it, and then hook up your branch to the execution. All right, so now if we did win the bid, or let's go ahead and go, we didn't win the bid, grab this return node, Control W, Control W, we're gonna need it twice. Okay, we did not win the bid, so we send back to the calling person who's calling bid for job that the bid was not successful. Okay, but if the bid was successful, like I said, this current job site is important to us, so it's checked many times. So let's go ahead and grab this, drop it in here as a set, grab the local job site, and just plug it into the current job site. And then it'll set whatever we pass through into there. All right, perfect. So yeah, you don't necessarily need this local variable. You could just drag right off of this and plug it into the set if you want. I don't like, being too spaghetti with my noodles, so I don't do that if I don't need to. So go ahead and plug in the return node right here, and the bid was successful. Perfect. Compile it, save it. Okay, so now what we need to do is we need to go back into the event graph of the construction office. All right, so now we need a place to be able to call this. Well, originally what I was doing to apply for a bid was I had it in the event tick. Probably a really bad spot for that, because it's always, we could put in a condition to check that we need, that we got employees, that we're not currently busy. But that means we're running tick 60 times a second. We're checking for a job. We're checking all that. That's really unnecessary. So another option, and this is different than how I have my main project. Really, if you look at my main project and compare it to this one, it's a lot different. The one I'm been showing you guys is a lot more optimized. So yeah, they're pretty different. But with that, what we need to do is let's go ahead and use a timer, right? Because we have some more control of the timer. We don't need to check 60 times a second if we need a job or not, right? So let's go ahead and right click. Just type in timer. We're going to get set timer by event and set timer by function. We want set timer by event. All right, go ahead and plug that in. All right, so now we need an event for this to call. So let's just go ahead and come down here, right click to custom event, hit enter. We'll call this one bid timer event. All right, we don't need anything coming into it. We just need to have it plain and blank right there. So off the event of the set timer, drag out, and you could, just like with the bind event, you could take this and you could plug this all the way in here and do all that. But even though this is a timer, we can still do the same thing like we do with the dispatcher. Just select event dispatcher, create event, and then come down here into select function, find your bid time event, select that, and there we go. Now it's all hooked up to that. So now at begin play, it's going to start this timer, right? So let's go ahead for now. Let's set this timer to 1 second. You can set it to a half second if you want. 1 second should be fine. It doesn't need to be that updated to check for a job. 1 second in the game could possibly be a few minutes. So not a big deal. Let's set it to looping. So that way this timer is constant. As long as the construction office is a valid object, as long as it's alive in the world, this timer is going to continue to run 1 second at a time until we stop it, clear it, or do something with it. All right, so now we got this timer hooked up. One thing we're going to need to do here is on the return value of your timer, you can see we get a timer handle structure. We're going to need access to this. What that's going to do, what the timer handle does, is it gives us a reference to this timer. So just right click on this, promote it to variable. Let's call this one bid timer handle, hit enter. Perfect, that's all we need for that. So now we got access to this timer from outside the function. Okay, so let's go ahead and right click here, and actually we don't need to right click. Let's just go ahead and, oh yeah, we do need to right click. Do get employees. We need to call our main function that we have on the parent of the building master, get employees, and then we need a branch. Before we ever run this, we need to make sure, do we have any employees? All right. So if we don't have any employees, well, then we're not going to do anything. We don't want to do anything off that one. But if we do, now we grab our bid for a job, drop it in here, and hook it up to the true. Perfect. So now if we have an employee, we come through here and bid for a job. That's why in here, all we did was check job status, is because we're checking beforehand if we have an employee. So we got to make sure we have employees. Then we bid for a job. Then we check to make sure in the bid for a job that we're not currently busy on a job. All right. So then we bid for the job. After that, go ahead and drop in a branch. And then we had the output pin on the bid for a job as bid successful. So bid successful, meaning that yes, we did get a bid. Everything came out all hunky-dory. All right. Hunky-dory. Yeah, that's that word. That phrase is even older than I am. So anyways, grab our bid timer handle here. Let's get it. Now there's some things we could do with this, but ultimately I think all we're going to do is just type in pause, and we're going to pause the timer. All right, pause timer by handle. You can clear it out, but there's no real need to it, because then you got to reset it, and it could probably be a pain in the butt and might break on you. So we're just going to pause it. Not a big deal. All right, so perfect. So now it's constantly checking every 1 second. It's looping through this and checking the bid timer event. It's running through all of this. And if we, at any one of those checks, we get a successful bid, it's going to pause that timer. So now it's not constantly checking this. See, if we were in event tick, no matter what, it's always going to be running all this stuff. So, yeah. Well, now we need a way to be able to know how to unpause it, because once we're done with our construction, we need to be able to start that timer again. Well, I just gave you the key word right there. When we finish our construction, we need to unpause the timer. So go ahead and grab your bid timer handle, plug it in here, type in pause again, and this time we want the unpause timer by handle. Hook in the execution right there. Just like that. And that is it. That is all we got to do. We're 32 minutes into this. Not too bad. Not too bad. Even though I had to re-record this, I think I shaved about 5 minutes off of this episode. So I saved a little bit of time. So that's pretty awesome. All right. Yeah. So this works. Well, it works. You can't really notice anything works. Nothing is really different. If we went and played this right now and we drop in a couple NPC and then drop in any of the construction buildings in here that we need, they're going to go and do the construction just like they normally did before. Like I said, we're not going to notice anything different at this point. But in the next episode, we will start setting up the intelligence of the NPC to apply for a job. I'm hoping I could do it in one episode, but I'm really thinking it's probably going to be 2, because we're going to have to dive into the behavior tree. And yeah, that always gets a little sticky and a little messy. So we'll see. It's hopefully one, probably going to be another 2 episodes to complete this intelligent construction design. But as always, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. If you did, please do me a favor, go down and hit that like button. It helps me out a ton. If you're new to the channel, go ahead and subscribe while you're down there liking it. And you can also follow me on Facebook and Twitter too. I'm not on there too much. I do monitor it, but I don't post a whole bunch, so your screens won't get hammered and flooded with, updates of stuff. But there are times when I do post updates, like if I'm not able to get to a video, or maybe give you guys heads up on things that are upcoming on the channel, things like that. But yeah, I won't flood your feeds if you want to follow me there. All right. Till next time, peace.